Hey everyone, this is Mike Andes, and you're listening to the Business Bootcamp podcast. Today I am not in Washington, I'm actually out of town. I am doing some training for Anytime Fitness in Minneapolis, and so today is out of the studio, but I wanted to record this episode and share something that I've been thinking about a lot lately and have been designing for my team. It's a scoreboard for your team to know exactly where you are at as a company, what your progress is, what your goals are, and what you can do to accomplish them. And it ties in perfectly with today's sponsor, which is cashflowtool.com/bootcamp. And I've talked a lot about them and everything that they can do for your business. And it ties in today because simply because when you talking about a scoreboard, it really... The beautiful thing about scoreboard in baseball or in hockey or in any sort of sport is that it allows the viewer to quickly identify who is winning and who is losing and where they are at in the game. And one of the greatest ways to determine where you are at in the game of business is looking at your cash flow. And so oftentimes I talk to small business owners and they don't know where their cash flow is at. They don't know what times of the year or what times of the week or what times of the month they need to be stocking up on cash, or they are when they are cash heavy, or when they really don't have enough cash in the bank, and it can be really put their business in jeopardy and put it at a big risk to if they go through a time when they don't have much cash flow, and if something bad in the economy happens or a competitor moves in. It really is a predictive way of anticipating tomorrow. And that's what a scoreboard can do. It can look at what the past is, give you a quick snapshot of where you are at now, and then project going forward which team needs to do better at which objects. That's what a scoreboard does. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But one of the greatest things you can track on your scoreboard is your cash flow. How much money is in the bank, and where do you need that number to be as your business grows and as you continue to scale up your company. And so today, as we talk about scoreboard, cashflowtool.com/bootcamp is a place you want to go. It's going to be lasting just several more weeks where they're offering us a free trial. And when you sign up, an extra $5 off of the monthly subscription. So check it out, cashflowtool.com/bootcamp. Now today, really what I'm talking about comes from a book called The 4 Principles of Execution. Mr. Covey wrote this book, and it is designed really for how do you get things done, and that's what I like to do. I don't like to theorize. I don't like to debate or talk about things. I like to get things done, and so this book kind of resonated with me. And what I like about it, it goes very, very deep in this thing called a scoreboard for your team and for the people that work for you in your organization, whether you are a nonprofit, small business, big corporation, whatever it is. The beauty of this book, I think it really is a must read. I haven't had one of these type of must read books around business for a long time. The E-Myth is definitely the first book I always tell small business owners to read when they're starting out. Then there are several other business books that aren't no fluff, like not inspirational, like just straight business, and this is one of them. The 4 Principles of Execution. Stephen Covey wrote this book, and I really did like it. Genuinely, the whole point, though, I'm going to summarize up today, and that is creating a scoreboard for your team. So I'm actually going to pull up the scoreboard that I created for my companies, and so I have several companies. I have the landscaping company, now the gym, and then I have my online businesses and the podcast, things like that, right? So I'm going to open up, let's see here, I'm going to open up the gym, actually. Let me do the gym, and then on Landscape Business Course podcast, I'm going to go over the landscaping scoreboard for my landscaping company. But let's go ahead. I'm just going to open this up, the scoreboard for Anytime Fitness. So basically, what you're trying to do, before I dive deep into the scoreboard I created for my companies, I want to talk about what the scoreboard is, why you need to do it. So essentially, what Mr. Covey writes about in this book, 4 Principles of Execution, is that far too often we get caught up in the whirlwind of our business. That is the day-to-day minutia. That is the getting things done. That is all the meetings we have to do. Just like the getting stuff done part of the business, which is by no means irrelevant. By no means is it not important. It is absolutely important that you service your customers and check the books and do payroll. Those are all very, very important things, but can be very easily we get caught up in that as business owners, and before we know it, we're caught up in the whirlwind, as he calls it, of running the business. That is the day-to-day operation, minutia stuff that we have to get done, but yet we forget and we fail to really think a longer term, think out of the box, think a little bit more strategically as far as how are we going to execute the things that are very important to us, the goals of the company, as he called it, the WIG. It's the wildly important goal within your company. What is that goal? What are you trying to get accomplished within your organization, and how are you charting towards it? And so the how are you charting towards it is really measured by the scoreboard. So on the scoreboard, there's certain metrics, and what far too often when people start making these scoreboards is that they create an owner's scoreboard. What that means is it's going to have revenue, and it's going to have different types of, each segment division of their company, which one's making most money. It's going to have payroll number. It's going to have a whole bunch of numbers. It's going to have a whole bunch of data that you as the owner of the business need to know. Very important. It's going to have CLV, customer lifetime value. It's going to have the retention rates. It's going to have the cost per click of advertising. Things that are very important, things you must know as a business owner. But for you and your team, it's not as important. Not necessarily not important. Take that back. It's less. The people in your team aren't going to get inspired by the numbers. They aren't going to get inspired by a bunch of data and a whole bunch of spreadsheets of different types of metrics within your company. The same way as when you look on a scoreboard for a sports team, there are just the key metrics of the game. There's usually goals or points. There is where they are at in the game as far as quarter. There's a time, some sort of clock. There is sometimes like lights to indicate how many timeouts there are, what period they are in, the very key aspects of the game, and that's really within a few seconds. You can look at that scoreboard and determine who's winning and where you are at in the game. And so when you're creating these scoreboards, you want to make sure you create a scoreboard that is for your team, not for you as the owner, because people are not going to get inspired by numbers, but you want it to be very easy. Within 5 seconds, they should be able to look at the scoreboard and know if you as a team are winning, or if you are losing, or if you are doing average on getting and tracking towards the goals that you have as a company. So what kind of things should there be on there? Number one, there's two different types of ways to measure something. And Mr. Covey writes this as lead measures and lag measures. So a lag measure, basically it lags behind in time. These are things like monthly revenues. This is like annual revenues. These are things that you can't track until the end of the month or the end of the year. This is a lot of things that you can't track on a day-to-day basis. And these are what is called lag measures. They lag behind. You don't know the annual revenue until it's been completed for the year. What he focuses on is lead measures, things that can be affected on the day-to-day that the team can look at and track their progress and really be able to see how the lead measures, the things that they do every single day, tracking those, see how it correlates to the lag measures of revenue and where the company is going and the goals of the company being achieved if they perform well on their lead measures. So for example, in a landscaping business, it's easy to track monthly revenue and churn rate and things like that. But what's easier for the team to look at is how many lawns do we mow today? What was the revenue of the mowing crew today? And what was the hourly rate that our crew achieved as far as dollars per man hour today? Those are things that they can then look at, track, try to improve, and make it a game to try to improve the scoreboard. And then they will see that their lead measures, the hourly rate, the number of mows per day, will then correlate with them winning in the lag measures of revenue and other things that are tracked in a longer term vision. So I would encourage you to really make one of these scoreboards. And what I did, I used a software called Canva, Canva.com. It's completely free. It's really like a beautiful way to design things and make things look really appealing. So I made it look really cool with charts and graphs and lights. So I used a red, yellow, green stoplight or like a traffic light as a way to indicate where our performance was at. So for each key metric that we're measuring on the team scoreboard, there is also next to it is a light that has red, yellow, or green, and basically it indicates whether or not we're doing really bad on that certain item. Yellow is average, or green is where we want to be and we are above our goal. And so for every single metric, we have that next to it, thereby allowing us to quickly, this is the goal, is to quickly glance at the scoreboard and know if we're winning or losing, where we're at, if we're doing average or if we are doing superbly, or which areas need work, which areas need help very quickly. So I think as it is with a regular scoreboard, there should be one or two things that jump out right away. So for instance, in a scoring of a game, the scores, the points, that is the the largest and most important factor. It's the thing that people look at for first. And so in my scoreboard, there's two things that are big. Number one is monthly revenue, which is a lag measure. So it's not a lead measure, it's a lag measure. We can't necessarily measure that all the time. However, what I did is I made it like a thermometer where we have our monthly revenue goal, and then every single day we update the thermometer based upon where we should be at. So we'll have a line of, okay, it's the third of the month, we should be 10% of the way through our goal. Here is on the thermometer where we're at from a revenue standpoint. Are we on track? Are we above? Are we below? And then so it's a little bit more of a lead measure because they're able to see it, they're able to report on it every single day and see what exactly we are at as a revenue and see how the lead measures or go to that lag measure. So it's a bit of a lag measure, but it is a really important thing. They want to know these things. And I would really encourage you to ask your team what they want to know. What metrics do they want to know? What do they want to see on the scoreboard? What will get them excited? Because if they don't buy in, if they don't really care, they're not going to work the extra hour or push a little harder to get the extra thing made or get the extra job done, get the extra client. So the scoreboard is really to incentivize them to gamify the success of your company and really make it part of their own. And in order for them to buy in, I really think you want to talk to them about what they want to see on the scoreboard. So that's the first thing that's kind of the biggest thing on the far left is the monthly revenue goal and then the thermometer of where we are at in that month according to and in comparison to that where we need to be to hit that revenue goal. On the far right of our scoreboard, I created our club rank. So again, this is for the Anytime Fitness gym that I am purchasing and am currently training for this week. And so over on the far right is the club rank. So in Anytime Fitness, they have their dashboard for the owner. And it is like the scoreboard for the owner. A bunch of digits and numbers and metrics that are very important to me as the owner, but aren't going to get my staff and my trainers and my people that sell memberships. They're not going to get excited over it. It's just going to look like too many numbers. So what I do is take those metrics and put them on the scoreboard for my team. And the club rank is basically one big traffic light. And basically, if we're in the top 100 clubs within the system, it's going to go green. If we're between 100 and 400, we're going to be yellow. If we're below the top 400 gyms, or really if we're out of the top 10% of the system, then we are red. So that's just not acceptable. It's not what we want. It's not where we want the club to be. And we would immediately recognize that as a big indicator because it's such a big thing on the scoreboard. So again, far left, we have monthly revenue goals, and that is charted every single day according to how much money we are generating, according to that number that we are tracking towards for that month. Then over on the far right, we got that club rank. That's the two big items, club rank, and that is very important. The reason the club rank is so important is because it really, from a holistic view, takes the health of the gym from a revenue standpoint to a member satisfaction standpoint to like all the different key metrics within the owner's scoreboard that I see in the back dashboard. It takes all of those numbers and kind of makes a number and ranks you, and so it's very easy for the staff to see their lead measures, the thing they're doing on a day-to-day basis, to easily track against what the club rank is. So that's why I made those two things big on the scoreboard. The other things I do is I track weekly sales. So we track the number of members we have as well as the number of fitness consults that we set up for our trainers. So those fitness consults will typically lead to training sessions that the trainers can set up. However, in order to get them into training, they have to have a fitness consultation that is free to be set up with the trainer, and we can assess their goals, assess their needs, and give them a plan to get to where they need to be from a health standpoint, the client. And so we want to track those things. Obviously, how many the members that we have is a direct correlation to the financial aspect of the company. Excuse me. However, on every single day basis, they can be tracking how many members they have sold that week. And then they can also track on an everyday basis a lead measure of their fitness consults that the office sets up for the trainers. So that's another lead measure every single day that they can track according to, okay, if I have a bunch of members that I'm signing up and I have a whole bunch of fitness consults that I'm setting up, how is that affecting the lag measures of club rank and the revenue goal? And so they can see how the lead measures, the things they're doing on a day-to-day basis, really correlate with the lag measures of revenue and club rank. And so the other things we measure, again, with lights next to them, with the traffic of the red, yellow, and green, based upon certain, what I know the numbers should be, could be, and I want them to be. So the attrition rate is red. It has so on all of this, I make it very visual. There's like a red cone next to the attrition rate. The next one has like a yellow thing, and the next one is a green like banner because it's a positive thing. So it's very, very visual when they look at this. So the attrition rate is the percentage of people that we have are basically turning over every single year in the gym. So essentially, if you have 1,000 members and 500 of them leave every single year, you have a 50% attrition rate. Some people would call this a churn rate. Basically the number of customers that you lose every year and have to resell new customers in order to fill their spot. So that's the attrition rate. And so we are shooting for less than 40%, which is really good for a gym. And right now the gym's at like 60 something percent. So definitely wanting to bring that down. Instead of trying to sell, maybe we should try to make sure the attrition rate goes down and save ourselves, plug the holes instead of trying to continue to pour more water in the system. And so that's one thing where, club performance is the attrition rate. Next one is the please score. It's also really just customer surveys that are sent out via headquarters to our members and making sure that please score is above the numbers that we want. This is also called the Net Promoter Score, NPS score. Net Promoter Score, if you've listened to other books and things like that, you know what that is. Basically, it gives a very, very clear indication as to how your customers view your company, and in a very concise way ask them if they would ever refer their friends or family to your business, and based upon that answer you get a score. Again, red, yellow, and green for the numbers that we want. Green members, that's also like this, the active members within the gym. This is another number that we have red, yellow, green for what we are at now, where we want to be, and then really, what's in between that number. And so trying to, when I buy this place in a couple weeks, get ownership, we're going to be in the red or yellow on a lot of these things, a red or yellow on a lot of these different aspects as far as. But the beautiful thing about Scoreboard is you're able to see the change. So what I want them to see is as they see the lead measures of green members and the fitness consult setup, as they see those lead measures and the things they can actively do on a day-to-day basis, as they see the surveys coming in because they make the place cleaner, and they see the attrition rate go down, and they see the number of members go up, then they start to see the lag measures of revenue and club rank begin to be affected and go from a red to a yellow, from a yellow to a green. And when they look at the scoreboard and it's gone from yellow to red, they all of a sudden realize there's something that they need to do. They start to ask, what can they do? What went wrong? How can we improve and get that back to a yellow and then up to a green? And so this is also something that we can talk about. This is something you can talk about in your team meetings, is looking at the scoreboard and then discussing what are we going to do this week. So in the other part of our scoreboard is this week's action items. And so in this part of the section, we look at the reds, we look at the yellows, we say, how do we get these to a green? And what are the action items we are going to do? What are the lead measures we need to improve on in order for these lag measures to catch up? What can we do today to make sure we go from 10% to 20% of the closing ratio? Like, how do we do that? How do we increase the club rank? Well, if in order to get the club rank higher, we're probably going to have to increase the surveys and the customer satisfaction, and we're going to have to decrease the attrition rate. Well, how do we do that? And so you begin to create these action items every single week at your team meetings based upon the scoreboard. And very quickly what you'll find is that employees will walk in the office, they'll walk into work, and they'll constantly be watching the scoreboard. Where are we at? And that's constantly what an athlete does. They're looking at the scoreboard. Where are we at? How much longer we have left to go? What are we according to the goal? Where are we at? And they want to know the score. And so if you aren't telling your people the score, if you don't have an open book policy, if you're not telling them, exactly what your revenues are, what your goals for the company are, what your wildly important goal is for that week, for that month, for that year, where the business is going, you can't expect them to constantly push and shove and really dig in and go the extra mile, as you would not expect an athlete to go the extra mile in the fourth quarter quarter when they're down by 2 and they have a chance, but they don't. Imagine if they didn't know it was the fourth quarter. Imagine if they didn't know the score. Imagine if they didn't know they were so close to winning the game. In order for your people to get their second win, in order to see them really excel and drive the performance of your business up, you've got to show them the score. And I think the scoreboard is a great way to do this. I think it's an actionable way to really see the results of your company grow and track it over time. Put it on a graph after a year of doing the scoreboard thing of what your attrition rate, your please score, your member count. For us, our gym, is what we'll do, is let them see the progress of what the scoreboard has done for the company and where your company has gone, and they will really start to buy into the scoreboard. They will start to invest their time, their energy, and really they'll be able to see the progress of the company. If you don't show a score, if you don't tell your people if you're winning or you're losing, I promise you they will not be able to push a little bit harder when you need them to. They will not be able to go the extra mile. And so I encourage you today, if you haven't listened to the book or even just take what I've talked about today, create a scoreboard for your company that they can see every single day, and I promise you it'll pay dividends in the long term. Those lead measures will lead to lag measures of revenue, better profitability, and long-term longevity for your company. So check it out if you haven't. Do read the book if you have the time, 4 Principles of Execution, and until next time, be great, because nothing else pays.